You've come into an inheritance of over $300 million, right? We've already begun constructing a duplex for us to reside in together. I've even included the kitchen, which I've always dreamed of. My mother-in-law utters her tone almost dreamlike, and my husband announces that he's quit his job and is planning to initiate a business venture using the inheritance Ashley has received. He continues his demeanor, oddly pleased. Wait a minute. I've told you that I haven't received any inheritance yet. You've quit your job and you're building a duplex. What's going on? Don't lie, it's evident that you've inherited. I exclaim, confusion mounting. How about we take a trip before the house gets built? How about Hawaii? My father-in-law chimes in, further contributing to the growing bewilderment along with my husband and mother-in-law. What on earth are these people thinking? They want to use the precious inheritance I received from my mother and spend it however they please, even though I'm filled with anger. I don't know what to do. The story goes back a few months. My name is Ashley, and I'm 38 years old. I married David, an office worker who was 2 years my senior. 12 years ago, shortly after our marriage, we welcomed our only daughter Julie. Since then, my days have been a blend of work and raising our child. Today I'm visiting my hospitalized mother with Julie. Oh, Grandma, it's been a while. Julie exclaims, welcome, Julie. It's lovely to see you, my mother, lying in her bed affectionately. Strokes Julie's hair, her hand, and her complexion appear pallid. Beside her bed stands a middle-aged man in glasses and a suit. He nods to me as I nod toward him before he exits the room. Julie inquires, is just an acquaintance, don't worry about it. More importantly, Ashley, are you doing well, and David, is he all right? My mother's eyes, a shade close to blue, sparkle softly. As she smiles, she met my father, who ran an import-export business overseas and came to the U.S. As his bride, raising a child in a foreign country must have been challenging, yet my parents worked together to raise me. Their efforts have enabled me to become a teacher today. I'm profoundly grateful to my parents for their love and support. They raised me in affluence, and after my father passed away a few years ago, my mother, now alone, fell ill and was hospitalized. She transferred her business to a relative and now spends her days quietly in the hospital. I'm fine. Mom, is there anything you need? Just having you and Julie come to see me is more than enough. After a heartwarming conversation, Julie and I head back home. Julie shares stories about school and the book she's recently read, displaying her bright and honest nature. We arrive home, where David greets us, asking about my mother's condition. Mom is doing as usual, and you? How was your seminar? Oh, I heard some promising information. Looking forward to the next one, my husband replies. Lately, he's been attending seminars about leaving his job and starting a side business. While he might desire more money, his current company is decent, and my salary contributes well to our household. His monetary greed, however, stemming from his parents, strikes me as distasteful. Since our marriage, I've been irked by his parents' excessive thriftiness and their habit of requesting small amounts of money whenever we meet. As a result, I've kept my distance, and they've never given Julie any Christmas presents. Fortunately, my in-laws live quite a distance away, sparing us from frequent interactions. Additionally, my husband is adept at handling household chores, so things are manageable with my mother, Julie, and our simple yet ordinary lives. I find contentment. Then, one day, the hospital called my mother's condition had abruptly worsened, and she was now in critical condition. As my family hurried to the hospital, we found my mother barely clinging to life. I've always wanted you to find happiness. Cherish Julie, above all else, I love you. That were the last words. My mother spoke before passing away. She had raised me with her whole heart alongside my father. She had adored Julie just as profoundly. My mother's face in the coffin bore a peaceful expression, while all I could do was weep. Julie stood beside me, crying as well. Sometime after her passing, an envelope arrived at our house. It was from an unfamiliar sender, containing a document from a law firm. The letter revealed that my mother's will left all her inheritance to me. Said inheritance, so I was taken aback. Despite the surprise, I decided to visit the law firm. Hello, I'm an attorney. Ed, the man who had been in my mother's hospital room, appeared. We met at the hospital. I recalled, yes, that's right, your mother entrusted me. He replied kindly. I was shocked when he revealed the inheritance was $300 million. Apparently, I had previously relinquished my right to the inheritance when my father passed away, allowing my mother to receive it all with her personal assets, combined. After taxes, this substantial amount was named as my sole inheritance. I had never asked my parents for money after marriage and had purposefully avoided the topic of inheritance. I felt dizzy realizing the depth of my mother's love with that thought. I left the procedures to Attorney Ed. Your mother cared deeply for you. If you need any assistance, feel free to reach out. As time passed around the time of my mother's 49th memorial service, my husband David began inquiring about the inheritance more frequently, despite his knowledge of my family's wealth. I had urged him to hold off due to the fact that my in-laws were no better at my mother's memorial service. My father-in-law and mother-in-law insinuated their willingness to assist me with the inheritance, citing their prior disputes over inheritance among unmarried siblings. About 3 months after my mother's passing, David's patience finally wore thin. Have you received your mother's inheritance? He asked, his tone tense, feeling uneasy. I quickly fabricated a response. The procedures are intricate, so not yet. In truth, I had already completed the procedures and followed Ed's advice by depositing the inheritance in a secure account, yet a lingering sense of caution compelled me to feign ignorance. It's been 3 months, though. Shouldn't you have handled it by now? His words unsettled me. David headed to bed with an odd sense of contentment the following day. As Julie and I tidied up after dinner, the doorbell rang. Julie hurried to the door, and as Ashley poked her head out of the kitchen, she was surprised to see her in-laws, who had shown up unexpectedly, along with David returning from work. Why are my father-in-law and mother-in-law here? Ashley wondered aloud. It's not a big deal, Mom. I'll go to my room. Ashley wondered aloud. It's not a big deal, Mom. I'll go to my room. Julie said, casting an anxious glance at both her mother and her grandparents before heading off. What's going on? Ashley asked. Never mind that, Ashley, we have something to celebrate today. Ed, her father-in-law, proclaimed excitedly. He opened the fridge and retrieved a beer. A celebration? You inherited over $300 million, didn't you? We've already started building a duplex for us all to live in, even with that dreamy modern kitchen. Her mother-in-law added in a dreamy tone, What are you talking about? Ashley was baffled. Be happy. Ashley, we've decided to build a duplex. We used half of our savings and the money that Mom and Dad set aside for the down payment. The loan is in my name, but you can pay it off with your inheritance, right? David, her husband, chimed in with a satisfied look. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? I told you, I haven't received the inheritance yet, and what does quitting your job and a duplex house have to do with anything? Ashley protested, Don't lie, it's clear you've inheritance. How about we go on a trip before the house is built? How about Hawaii? Father-in-law suggested, with her husband and mother-in-law agreeing excitedly as chaos escalated. David scoffed, "You're being stingy. Ashley, we looked into it, whether you lied or told the truth about not processing inheritance. You still have a right to it. You can't renounce an inheritance if you don't process it within 3 months. Considering the scale of my father-in-law's company, there must be over $300 million. We'll be living comfortably thanks to them." Amidst intense anger and frustration, Ashley found herself unable to speak, concerned about Julie in the other room. She excused herself and went outside, not even taking her wallet. The cool night air brought tears to her eyes as she headed to Hilltop Park, a place she used to visit with her mother. She cried her emotions in turmoil. She was suddenly startled when someone spoke to her, opening her eyes. She found a person speaking softly to her. 3 days later, Ashley called her husband and in-laws to a restaurant with private rooms. David questioned Ashley. "You shouldn't leave home without telling your husband." Divorce notice already filled out. "David, I want a divorce." She stated firmly, "What are you saying?" David looked panicked, and her in-laws exchanged glances. "I can't continue like this with you anymore." "What are you saying?" "You're leaving us after receiving the inheritance. You've changed because of the money you got." David's face flushed with anger. "That's not it. David, ever since I inherited my mother's estate, you've been out of control, quitting jobs, starting businesses, deciding to live with your parents without even discussing it, depleting our savings to build a 2-family home, and planning trips to Hawaii. Who's the one who changed when the money came in?" Ashley snapped back, her frustration evident. "I cannot possibly remain with such individuals." "Wait, you can't just divorce me like that." David protested. "That's right. Our shared savings after marriage, our joint property, and half of the inheritance belong to David." No matter what, my in-laws chimed in their fervent expressions. "That's correct. If it comes to that, we'll take $300 million with us." They added their voices. Just as I was about to respond, the door to the private room slid open, revealing Julie, my daughter, and attorney Ed. "Grandpa and Grandma should know better. The inheritance Mom received doesn't become shared property, right?" "Mr. Ed," Julie spoke with a determined voice. "Julie? And who are you?" David asked, puzzled. "I'm attorney Ed. Ashley's mother entrusted me with this matter, and I've been advising Ashley." Ed explained with a bow. "That's all well and good, but wait, the inheritance doesn't become shared property." David questioned, clearly distressed. "That's correct. Inherited property from a deceased parent does not become shared property, nor is it subject to the division of property." Ed clarified. "What? You've got to be kidding me. Is this a mistake that can't be?" David and my in-laws were in disbelief in front of their flustered expressions. I was taken aback. It seemed that they genuinely believed the inheritance I received would become their property. In that case, it was even more of a reason not to divorce. "I'll cling to you no matter what," my husband shouted, his eyes bloodshot, and his desperation evident. "Stop it already," Julie interjected calmly. "Since Mom suggested divorce and since Mom inherited the estate, has Dad ever thought about Mom? Grandpa and Grandma only ever talk about money, they never once mentioned me. I can't consider such people to be family." David and my in-laws were taken aback. The day I was crying about my inheritance, Julie was the one who spoke up. Julie had run after me and told me about her observations. "Julie, it's not like that. Dad wants you to be happy," my mother-in-law said. "That's right. Julie, dear, you'd be happier living with us, wouldn't you?" added my father-in-law. That's right, a child shouldn't interfere. My in-laws persisted. Julie, with an exasperated look, said, I'm going with Mom. I can't bear to be with you anymore. She turned away their decision. We've made up our minds, Julie, and I will be leaving. I stated calmly as I said this. David grew angry. Hey, I've never cheated, and you can't force a divorce. I'll hire a lawyer. We'll get that money one way or another. He explained, if that's the case, I will take care of it from here. Ed spoke quietly. The issue here is whether there are grave reasons for not continuing the marriage, quitting jobs, using household savings without permission, and deciding to live together. Julie's saying she can't bear it. There are various points we can argue. Moreover, your daughter recorded the sound of all of you begging for Ashley's inheritance, which should also serve as evidence. David slumped, and my in-laws turned pale after seeing Ed, Julie, and me leave the restaurant. A year later. Thanks to Ed's efforts, my divorce from David was finalized. Julie and I moved into the house my mother had lived in, but there were several instances when we received letters saying, I love you, come back. And David was seen loitering near Julie's school. So, we asked Ed to apply for a restraining order, and after that, it was quiet. Rumors circulated that they had indeed built a two-family home. My retired in-laws had to work in a factory, and though David looked for work, he couldn't find any, resorting to manual labor. Neighbors claimed that constant arguments echoed from their new home, making them unpopular in the neighborhood. Julie and I continue to live peacefully, helping each other. Recently, Julie expressed her desire to study abroad in the country where my mother grew up to sever ties completely with my ex-husband. We decided to move overseas. We used a bit of my mother's inheritance, but I'm certain she would be pleased. Julie appears to be thriving in school, and I've started working as a teacher there. I hope these tranquil days continue.